So welcome. Our session today is why connecting learning and recognition is the key to high-performing sales teams. This session is being sponsored by Hive Perform and Achievers. And we've got two wonderful speakers today, Laura Keith, who is the CEO of Hive Perform, and David Bator, Managing Director of Achievers Workforce Institute. So let's please welcome Laura and David to the session. Laura, if you'd like to start sharing your screen, the floor is yours.
Oh, thanks so much, Mel, and welcome everybody. Really pleased to have you here today. The topic I think both David and I obsess over, so we're super excited to get started. Let me just share my screen. Oh, my stuff disappeared. Always happens, right? Here we go. So just to kind of go back over, thanks for the lovely welcome, Mel. So I'm Laura Keith. I'm the CEO of a company called Hive Perform. We're a team who are obsessed with human performance in sales. And so we've built basically a suite of AI sales enablement tools, which are kind of designed to drive more deals and revenue performance. I'm super excited to be speaking with David today. He's, as we said, MD for Achievers Workforce Institute. And the two of us today, we're going to be focusing on why there needs to be such a connection between learning, recognition, or learning and skills actually is a huge kind of conversation topic right now. So learning skills and recognition, particularly within the sector of high performing sales teams as well. So David, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you and Achievers and the kind of cool stuff that you're working on right now.
Sure, lovely to be with you, and thanks for the opportunity, Laura. My name's David Bator, and I work for Achievers. And Achievers is a recognition and reward software company. Our customers enjoy high frequency employee recognition within the flow of work to connect employees to their mission, their manager, and their peers. And the part of the business that I run is our Workforce Institute, which is really a team of workforce researchers and data scientists that work to underpin the product we develop, but also to provide counsel to customers. And we do this really through global primary research programs and working very, very closely with our customers to understand the impact all of the inputs they'd be collecting through ours and other systems are having on things that drive performance for their business. So this is a great topic.
Yeah, totally agreed. We're going to kick off by getting you all engaged a little bit as well. So we want you to contribute. So please feel free to put your answers into the chat. But David and I would love to know, or would love you to share a time where recognition made a big difference on your motivation and performance. And David, can you share one of yours whilst everyone's popping theirs in?
Sure. Mine's a bit of a downer. I worked at the beginning of my career. I worked for a boss who loved overtime, and I did a ton of it. It was my first job. I was not particularly well paid. And at the end of this particular project that I had done, where I had literally worked hundreds of extra hours, he gave me a $10 coffee card as a thank you. And I have to say, I was insulted. What I would have valued more was just a thank you for a job well done. And I think that's probably my own bias, but it's today why I never send recognition to any of my colleagues that is just points or monetary. I always send recognition that is personal, specific, and impact oriented. And then I tend to save my points to boost things inside my team and beyond it that I think are worth a few extra bucks. What about you, Laura?
Yeah, nice. Mine's maybe more positive. But actually what I really struggled with this question is to think of like this big moment of recognition that I received that made a difference to my life. Because for me, recognition is more about consistency, and it's much more about making it relevant to the input. So we talk a lot at Hive Perform about input, output, leading and lagging indicators. And for me, it's where we kind of have a regular dialogue in our team. We do this kind of weekly reporting, and I kind of, give a reflection of the week and what I've been doing. Where my line manager consistently recognizes, what I've been doing, why it's important, connecting it into the value of like the investment group and the business. That's the little stuff that makes me keep going each week, as opposed to these big moments of like full company recognition. I think that's what motivates me to keep going each week. So for me, it's the little and often, and it's tied to leading indicators, inputs over outputs.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we think this topic's really interesting, and we've talked about this. So there's kind of what are the biggest challenges you're seeing? So in your line of work, David, you're kind of looking at the data and the insight behind kind of recognition and why it's important and what impact it makes on business performance. What for you is the biggest challenge companies face when actually tying recognition to learning in sales in particular?
I think the biggest challenge is that they don't do it. The evidence is pretty clear from our research that when someone is frequently recognized, and this can be monetary recognition or just non-monetary or what we call social recognition, to your point, when there's that consistent, frequent approach, it has an outsized impact on how someone feels about their engagement, about their well-being, about their sense of belonging, also about their manager. When we see someone frequently and consistently recognized, it also changes how they feel about the growth and the development opportunities that they have at their company. When someone is frequently recognized, they are their most productive selves at work. And I think for salespeople specifically, they're 3 times as productive if they're recognized at least monthly. And here I really draw a distinction between recognition and reward. Most of the recognition that happens on our platform is non-monetary. It's the frequency of that recognition that helps exactly with what you were just talking about, with his, sense making of where you are right now and where you might need to go next. And it really helps salespeople mark their journey towards the outcome that they're trying to drive. And then they can be lightly rewarded. But when most people think about recognition and their recognition program, they think it's a thank you program. And what our research shows is that it is so much more. What our greatest customers do is that they connect their recognition program to the outcomes they're trying to drive. And we were talking before, we did a study about 2 years ago that looked at what happened when organizations were connecting their recognition program with their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And one of the things that we saw through that research is that individuals, employees who worked for those organizations were 3 times as engaged. What our research shows, and we see this on the screen here, is that when employees are recognized for an action, they are 74% more likely to repeat that action. So the challenge for all of us as leaders and sales leaders is think about your sales process. Think about what great discovery looks like, or how you want to coach your teams to give great advice, or how you want them to align customer pain to the value your solution provides. Recognizing someone when they get that right not only makes them feel good, but doing it on a platform, you are showing the rest of your organization what great can look like.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I've been a sales rep my entire life. I've done different versions, B2C, account exec, new biz, B2B. And I think throughout all of the different roles I've played, in the sales industry, you're normally recognized for the revenue that you bring in, right? That's and I think businesses think, well, that's great. I give you your commission, you get recognized regularly. In fact, you're probably the department that gets recognized the most because you get paid commission for the output that you deliver.
Right.
And it's really interesting that actually, if you want to drive more performance on the revenue, you actually need to think much more about what are the right behaviors that drive you there. And then the other thing that I often see when we're kind of looking in sales enablement is that coaching and feedback and recognition is often tied to your gaps and not your strengths, right? So if you want a repeatable, strong performance, like you've mentioned here, you've got to start baking in the regularity of that repetition of the strengths and the good behaviors as much as you're kind of driving your sales reps to fill the gaps.
I think you're exactly right. Every year we do a study on engagement and retention, and we're just gearing up to publish our 8th annual. At the beginning of this year, we published our 7th annual, which found that compensation was the #1 reason someone's going to leave their job. But when we scratched at that, we asked a question: of the employees that did the survey. And we said, which job would you prefer? Would you prefer a job where you felt seen, valued, and appreciated every single day? Or would you prefer a job where you got paid 30% more? 75% of respondents picked the former. And so it's
Yeah.
not just the way we keep score that matters to someone. People want to be recognized and seen and valued and appreciated. And frequent recognition, that consistent approach you're talking about, is an amazing way to do it.
I'm guessing it's not about not paying the compensation. It's about doing the two together. Because the sales
That's
brain in me is
exactly
going,
right.
ching, 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 I still need the
That's
revenue.
right. That's right. That's right.
So in your experience, what are some of the kind of surprising ways you've seen companies weave recognition into learning to create something that's much more meaningful and measurable in performance? Have you got any good kind of examples from the customers that you've worked with that's
Yeah.
helpful for everyone to understand?
Yeah, I think of a customer of ours who's in telecommunications who had launched a new product offering, and they trained their call center employees to be outbound and driving sales here. And what they found was a couple of things. So they found that, first of all, as customers were starting to call into the call center, customers knew more about the feeds and speeds of the offer than their trained salespeople did. And they also found that the enrollment in the training had been pretty flat. And let's face it, training can often be pretty boring. And so what this organization did was they repurposed the same content from their training manual as a series of quizzes. And if you got, all the questions right in a particular quiz, you could win one prize. If you got everything right throughout the course of the campaign, you could win a series of really big prizes, and you were recognized for your achievement there. And what they found was that not only were they able to really understand in real time what segments of content were being retained by their salespeople and where there were still gaps in knowledge, but they drove a massive increase in sales for that particular product line. And in fact, it's the way they continue to roll out new training, is making it fun, interactive, and using recognition and light reward to drive the right types of behaviors. And I think as well of an organization, while not in a sales capacity, the question was really about performance. This was an organization that was trying to get folks to complete LinkedIn learning courses around resilience. And this was smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, where resilience was a buzzword for all of us. And they used the attention they got from our platform, which is a highly used, highly trusted platform, as a way to promote that training, that it existed. They went on to recognize and lightly reward people who completed that training. And what they found was that by those individuals taking that training, not only were they able to ensure that they had everything they needed in terms of understanding what it was to be resilient, but actually drove down turnover 3% for that organization. So these are two different use cases of the recognition program, the thank you program that we all think we know, being pointed and connected in a very purposeful direction.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. And I don't know if you see this, but some of the challenges I often see when we work alongside, I'm fairly disconnected in terms of how they think about driving performance. But there's quite a few levels of disconnect where you've got a team thinking and looking at the skill development and the skill transition and the learning that needs to be done across the organization. You've then got and you might have like your LMS or your platform or your specialist suite for enablement like Hive Perform. And then you've got someone thinking about like performance outputs, and then you've got someone thinking about recognition and talent in a different funnel. And so recently we've been doing quite a lot of work in like agile HR and agile practices, and it feels like from what you're saying, that kind of tying together of the whole loop, so that really tight connection of understanding what behaviors and skills you want to see, mapping that to like how you recognize frequently, and then thinking about that output of performance and measuring that loop all the way around is how you kind of, like, if you miss bits of that, you're kind of a kind of one-legged a one-legged stool.
Something like that. But and I think you're exactly right.
Like
When you think about it, when you zoom out, so many of the programs we build for our people, and with great intention,
Mm.
we do so vertically. And we often
Yeah.
miss the opportunity to build that horizontal layer. And I can think of no other technology that touches every single part of the employee experience the way that recognition and reward does. And so, and you know, even beyond that, I think what we're really trying to do in that first example, you know, you're trying to understand, you know, our people, we're training them, we're teaching them, are they able to retain and apply the things we're teaching them? And what we see is that, you know, recognition has this amazing ability to do that and bring that visibility to life.
Yeah, nice, cool. So I'm really keen. So David, everybody really kindly has offered to share some of the data and stats that Achievers have been working on in connecting recognition and performance across all the kind of different organizations that we're working with. So I'd love to like bring those up if you're happy to, because I think these are really insightful stats, and tell us a little bit more about like what do these stats mean, and what's the connection between recognition programs and revenue growth, and obviously always great examples of where you've seen it come to life are helpful, because I think these are really fascinating. We can learn a lot from them.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think that first of all, it's a tough time to be an employee, and I think it's also a tough time to be responsible for creating conditions to engage employees. You know, the terms employee engagement and employee experience are often used interchangeably, but they have different meanings. An employee is engaged when they're committed to do the job that they're paid to do. And it's our responsibility, all of us on this call, to create conditions so that folks can be engaged in the first place. And what our research shows is that, you know, most salespeople are not being recognized in a way that makes them feel valued. Most salespeople do not trust their manager, and most salespeople would not recommend their manager to other people. Whether or not you accept the wisdom that, you know, people don't quit their company, they quit their boss, you know, these stats should jump off the page to you. What we also see is that the lion's share of employees are not engaged at work. They wouldn't recommend their company. Can you think about being a salesperson? And that's what you're in the business of recommending your organization. And so what we see is that there's, you know, it's a tough time to be doing this. What we also see, though, is that there is an outsized impact when organizations create conditions so that people can be frequently and meaningfully recognized. People who are frequently and meaningfully recognized have a strong sense of belonging at work. And that's what you're really trying to cultivate, is that sense of belonging. When employees have that strong sense of belonging, they're 6 times more engaged, they are 7 times more productive, and they're 12 times more likely to recommend yours as a great place to work. But I think what also jumps off the page to me is I'm just reminded of some customer success stories of customers using recognition very purposely, not just to affect how their people feel and how engaged they are and how their sense of belonging every single day, but to that earlier point of saying, you know, we have a purpose, we have a goal that we're trying to achieve, that we're trying to perform against. Here's how we do it. So a customer of ours who's in the telecom industry was trying to increase mobile protection plans. And what they decided to do, even though they'd had an incentive for this, people were not availing themselves of the incentive. And so they began this 2-month campaign of frequent recognition and light reward. They would give basically $10 for each protection plan sold. And they did all kinds of creative things to make people aware of it. But what they saw just in that 2-month period, by using recognition and light reward, they had a 425% increase in protection plans sold, which actually wound up being in the neighborhood of more than $300,000 of additional revenue. And so, long story short, what we really see with this approach to recognition is that what we're seeing on this screen is when someone is frequently recognized, we can attend to how someone feels about how they go to work, but we can also leverage that recognition very purposely to drive business outcomes.
Yeah, nice. And I mean, you can't argue with that data, right? I'm pretty sure everyone's sat up at those revenue numbers if we've got any sales leaders on the call. I think these stats are fascinating. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give everyone the opportunity to scan these QR codes so you can dive into more of the reports and the data behind it, because I think they're incredibly useful to look into and to start thinking about it. While people are doing that, David, I think we've got about 10 minutes left. I'd love to leave about 5 minutes for questions. But before we do that, I think it'd be great if both of us can share, like, what are some of the quick wins for sales leaders to think about when they're starting to align recognition to learning in sales, or like, what are 3 practical tips that you would kind of offer out to everybody here to kind of sum everything up? And where do they go after the webinar if they're like, I'm inspired, but what do I do next?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing I would say is to do it. Frequent recognition really helps improve, again, how people feel about themselves, about their work, about your company, and you as their manager. As we shared in that previous slide, just 24% of folks, sales folks today, say they would recommend their manager. So there is still an uphill climb. We did a study on the 4 factors of manager effectiveness, and this is true across all professions. And the 4 factors of manager effectiveness are these: frequent contact, frequent recognition, coaching, and career development. So if you lead people and if you lead salespeople, be mindful of those 4 factors, because those are the things that predict the extent to which someone is going to do the job they're paid to do and recommend you as their manager. If you click down on recognition specifically, I think I've been talking a lot about, I've been speaking frequently about frequent recognition. And so I think there are 3 things that are top of mind for me. First of all, to make sure that recognition is frequent. What success looks like from our research, is that someone is recognized at least monthly. This does not mean that they have to get an award or dollars with this. It's just the act of being recognized at least monthly has an impact. The second thing is that recognition is meaningful. So it's nice to get the pat on the back and the attaboys and so on. But what employees really value is recognition that is specific, recognition that is impact oriented, and recognition that is personal. And when you collect all of that recognition on a platform, the beauty of that is that what you're really cultivating is an inventory of peer validated skills. It models the behaviors for everyone else in the organization. It makes it easy for people to find the people and skills they need so they can be productive and positive and high performing. And I think the third thing is don't miss the opportunity to connect your recognition program to something else. If you have a recognition program and it has monthly recognition, that's great. But you have this opportunity to leverage this thing that you have and direct it towards other things, whether it's trying to sell more of a product, drive your customer net promoter scores in a particular direction, build resilience, drive training outcomes. Don't miss the opportunity to connect it. So frequent, meaningful, and connected. Those are my big 3. What about you?
Yeah, I love that. And I promise David and I didn't align on these beforehand, but I also had to think about this. So I'm wearing 3 hats, right? So I'm 20 years experience as a sales rep, multiple different roles. I've been the sales leader, and I'm also CEO of a company who is obsessed with building a sales enablement tool which drives performance in the team. So we've been connected with Achievers for quite some time and learning tons around the impact of recognition and how we've been experimenting with that. So we're specialists in AI, and how can that help as well in this whole process? So I had a go at thinking about what the 3 things were that I thought, based on some of the conversations we've had. And they're really aligned. And I promise we did this separately, but we've been running loads of experiments across sales reps to look at when you're designing a sales enablement initiative, how important is recognition to that? And the data, again, is been really exciting to see. So we've basically also, one of the latest things that we've realized in the sales world is that actually being able to recognize for performance has been really hard, because normally as a rep, your performance is in front of the customer. And that's hard to unless you as a sales leader, you're going and watching back all of those calls over a huge amount of time, it's just too time intensive. So actually what AI can now do is help you to record those calls, take the transcripts, play them against a set of skills or a set of great behaviors that we think leads to a great customer outcome, and then give them real-time feedback. So here's how you've done, these are the skills that you're representing. This is it over a period of time as well, because we all have good days and bad days. So being recognized for like a one-off or recognized for a bad day over like consistent performance is really hard as a sales leader. So we've really seen a massive impact in performance across our customers and our team, where they've been basically taking these call recordings, taking the transcripts, mapping, and then what they do, which is really interesting, really aligned, is they put it into weekly coaching conversations. And what that means is in the coaching conversations, they're basically trained on saying, these are the things that you've been doing really well. I can see them. I can see you've been doing the calls, and that's great. And that kind of consistent baked in weekly recognition from performance is really driving the reps to perform. They also can own it themselves, right? So it's not just the manager doing it, but they can also own their own recognition of performance. So doing it on real life, real world examples has been really interesting to see the link to that recognition and performance. The second is, we talked about this before, is kind of the leading indicators. So kind of stopping looking at the outputs, and like the outputs will become, if you believe in these are the behaviors, here's how we decode the sales process, the ways of working, the understanding of the customer experience, and mapping that, and then looking at how you kind of recognize against those indicators. That's been a real shift in performance. So taking your eye off the output number and into the input activities and recognizing on those as kind of driven the revenue numbers up. So that's been really, really exciting to see. And then the last one, I sort of talked about this earlier actually, but we're obsessed with onboarding. And if you get onboarding correct, and it's a huge part of sales enablement, is how in normally 3 months, but we've been working with customers to get our sales reps ready in a month. But if you embed recognition into that, they're sort of drilled from day one in how to do it, both the sales manager and the rep. So we think kind of baking in good habits in onboarding. We've started to see that, and we use I don't know if you know Mark Roberge, who does the sales acceleration formula from Amazon. He talks about the importance of onboarding and coaching and recognition in there. And so we baked that into how we deliver sales enablement, and again seen the reps highly engaged in the platform, highly engaged in repeatable behaviors for learning. But I think the kind of core stream that went across it all was the recognition. So it was super cool to see. And so, if you aren't engaged in achievers and their understanding of kind of the data and the numbers behind recognition and performance, I just feel like it's a massive gap in. So these are my three, and I think we're really aligned on those. I'm conscious of time. We've actually got 2 minutes left. But David and I are really keen to check in and see if there are any questions. Mel, I don't know if there's any that you can moderate and fire out for David and myself.
Yeah, there were 2 questions. I put them in chat for you too, so you could see them, just to the 2 of you, but I'll read them out. One was early on. Do you find it useful to align learning progress with revenue success? For example, the salespeople who do the most learning are typically the ones beating the quotas.
I'll leave you to that one.
I was nodding vigorously. I absolutely do. And I think this is where recognition has a big role to play, not only in reinforcing what those great behaviors look like, but what's great about recognition is that it leverages storytelling. And the extent to which you can use stories to showcase individuals and the things they've done on their path to whatever great happens to look like. I think it's incredibly powerful. So I vigorously nod yes. What about you, Laura?
Yeah, I think it's yes. But I also think it's hard. I think it's hard to go. Sales, I think, is a really great place to look at because it's very simple to connect to business performance metrics. I think when you're in the leadership world, and I actually love the example you gave earlier, David, of D&I. Where the business performance of D&I maybe is slightly less tangible for organizations, But if you break that down and get it right, then actually you can see it can be connected. I think what often happens is people don't connect those outcomes to business performance. And some people find it really hard to do that. So where I've seen things like D&I initiatives fail is where there's been gaps, probably mainly in recognition and connection to output and performance.
Okay,
Was
I
there a
know
second
we're
question,
right
Mel?
at
Are we going to
time.
wrap up? Okay.
I know we're right at time. Would you be willing to take one more? Because I'm pretty sure it's a burning question, because it's so prevalent in our industry right now. How do you see AI being implemented to do the performance coaching, individualized training, and giving good access to performance data?
Do you want to take that one first, Laura?
Yeah, I mean, this is so I think, firstly, I think AI is a fantastic way of leveraging human performance in the workplace and unlocking better coaching, better recognition, more qualified recognition. And so I think AI has a really cool role to play in enabling us to, for example, the example I gave before, where you can now, I could never go and watch or read the transcripts from the performance of my sales reps. I can now have all of that information decoded and played back to me in a way that my recognition is now much more on point, much more qualified as feedback, more effective in my coaching. And so that's one way in which I think AI can really help. But there's loads of ways. And I think us mapping out the kind of experience, that whichever learning initiative you're looking at, and mapping that out, thinking about where are those points of recognition and where can AI automate or give me better data, is using those kind of design thinking skills, I think is hugely impactful in how we can iterate and improve as HR teams as well.
Yeah.
And sales teams.
I would just briefly add that we're very excited about AI and its potential. That every organization that we work with they're overwhelmed almost by the amount of data that they have at their fingertips, to the point where it's almost paralyzing. And the great opportunity of AI is to provide meaningful assists, to lead people to insights, to deliver more personal and relevant insights for individuals. We've left really an era of one size fits all, and we're in an era of hyper personalization. And AI, I think, has so much to offer in its ability to deliver those sorts of experiences for salespeople and all types of employees.
Yeah, agreed. I really like that.
Well,
I'm conscious that we're at time.
we
What
are.
I'll do is I'll just quickly flick onto here. Thank you very much. David and I are more than welcome for you to connect with us on LinkedIn and carry on the conversation. It's something we're both very passionate about. You're here if you want to kind of keep connected and keep talking about these topics as well. And then if you'd like a demo of Achievers or Hive Perform, you want to go under the hood a little bit more about what we've talked about, hear some more customer stories, challenges a bit more around some of the conversations we're having, hear about some of the barriers, then just please feel free to kind of complete the poll here, and obviously ourselves and the teams will reach out and give you a bit more information. We like to go under the hood, so please feel free to book in and come and hear more about it. David, thank you so much. I love it. As always,
thank you, Laura.
I learn a ton every time I speak to you. So thank you for joining us. Thanks for the data, the insights.
It went too quick.
For joining.
30 minutes go fast. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, David. Thanks to all of you for joining. I'll keep the poll up here a little bit. If you'd like to, as Laura said, get a look under the hood with either company, let us know. We have your information from registration. So you just need to select your answers there on the poll. The session was recorded and will be made available. And we thank you all for joining, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you are in the world. And we look forward to seeing you in future events. Thank you. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, David.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.